guys hear us okay? Hello? Hello, can you hear us? We can't tell whether we have audio or not because the microphone unplugged and I plugged it back in. Let me know if you can hear me. We'll give you a rundown on today's proceedings. But I need to know if you can hear me because I'm not going to waste my breath.
And they're talking to a nailhead. Yeah, bring it up that way. You can tell.
Yeah.
Audio.
Yeah, I'll bring it up on here and then see if I can hear it. If I can, then I'll turn it down. YouTube. I don't want this anymore. Close that out. My YouTube channel. And yeah, we're live, so.
I believe a company should focus on what they do best. At Tacomas, that's handcrafted. At Tacomas, that's handcrafted. At Tacomas, that's handcrafted.
Okay, we can hear you.
All right. We got sound.
So, let me, come on. Comments. Live chat. There we are. Top chat 1. Okay. It's working. The white is all on the airplane. And because there was no primer on this, ended up using a little more than we thought. But remember, I started out with this much in the jar of paint, of unthinned. Then I brought it up to here after thinning it with retarder. I still have an inch and almost 3/4 of an inch in the bottom. So there's enough for any touch-ups.
We'll touch up. I noticed your blocks for your landing gear need it around the edge a little bit. Take an airbrush and the weight box a little bit around the edges a bit. Outside of that, I don't see any glaring spots on that. Now I've looked it over for any primer showing through or any green putty showing through, and I'm not seeing any of that. So, all in all, this thing looks pretty nice. I don't know if you can really tell by that. It's pretty much dry. Might be able to use a little bit of a coat more on the inside, but really doesn't have to have it. Maybe just a touch on that back door there. But overall, beautiful, no orange peel. Wheel spats. You can see the shine, maybe.
Of course, they get a couple of different trim colors and clear on them as well yet.
Really nice.
We'll fancy them up.
Nice, smooth, flat paint job. The airplane itself, I mean, you look it over real good. It bagged a little bit, and then what you got to expect, because they're going to all bag. They'll bag all the way through the clear coat. But the best thing to do is just let it bag, don't touch it. Let it dry, and as soon as it dries, it'll start shrinking up, and all the bagging will come out of it. And let it dry real good. Right now, he needs to let it dry real good. I wouldn't touch this airplane until next weekend for taping it off for trim colors. So let this gas off real good for a week. Should be more than plenty. And go to town, start going to town. I don't know that maybe you'll see something if you get it out in natural light. I rather doubt it. But remember, when you're doing these paint jobs here, if you do have some little spot, plan your trim work around them.
You can still see through the paint, so.
Yeah, you can still see through the paint, but plan your trim work around it. If you got a weak spot, a light spot somewhere, or a faux pas somewhere, accent it. Put a trim thing over top of it, and it'll actually make it hide and make it go away. And clear will make stuff go away in the long run too. So just sort of plan around that. If you might have to shift your pattern a little bit, an inch here or something, just do it. But do it symmetrically around the whole airplane, and you'll be fine. Biggest thing, dope is the most forgiving paint that you can paint with. Absolutely the most forgiving paint that if you're gonna paint with anything is dope. And once you let it dry, it's more than sandable. It's more, you can feather it in, you can top coat, you can repair. And as long as it's not real old, it's yellowed or, sun's bleached it out or whatever. I see a little light spot right there.
Yeah, well, too bad.
A little bit right there, but that's it. Maybe a little bit right there too, that green. Should have probably, rather than leaving that green putty on there, you should probably primered over that, because that stuff just for some reason. The gray covers real good and the green just doesn't want to cover, but all the other spots that had green on covers okay.
By the time I get the red maroon trim on it,
Checkerboards and
the checker.
numbers and all that stuff on there. Even got the inside of the tank compartment, a nice coat.
Well, it doesn't have to be beautiful.
It's all white.
Top chat is too, where nobody's chatting. I guess you guys are tired of us. But we got through today.
Sort of hard looking at a big piece of plastic.
Yeah. And we do apologize for that. Maybe I'll edit one of the videos up and edit out the plastic crap and try to voice over or whatever. We're kind of at the mercy of the internet. It just didn't want to cooperate.
I don't know, we're not more than 60 feet away from a router.
Yeah, but that's a block wall, right?
No, just a stud wall.
Well, sometimes when you're in the garage talking, I can barely
But
understand you.
this is a plaster house, so, I mean, it's got, it could block it if it's got the metal lath in it. Not all the house has metal lath. Some of it's been tore out and redone. But the metal lath could act like an antenna blocker or some type, I suppose.
So it took 6 hours to put it in white. Got here at 9 o'clock, didn't start till 11. Yeah, not really 6, 4 hours. Took an hour for lunch.
Hour for lunch and dinked around there this morning a little bit. Checking things out, making sure all the little spots were done up.
I'm happy with it. Turned out better than I thought it would.
You gotta realize, ain't no primer on that thing except a couple little spots.
Got a little bagging in here, but it should, it's pretty cold.
That'll all come out.
Yeah, this is all taunting dope, it's not the non-taunting stuff. That doesn't go on till the last coat. So, we won't know, but I figured that we'd add 2 ounces today. I would say 2 ounces.
Probably.
Be nice if it was 1, but don't hold your breath.
We have to put two, you could put 2 coats of paint on. Put
Most of it was thin.
2 wet coats of paint. I know most of it's thinner, but paint weighs and use, a half a quart, a little less than a half a quart to actually unthin paint. Look at the shine. You sitting over here, you see the shine in the wingtip, inside the fuselage, and all that stuff. So it had some nice, wet coats of paint put on it. You get that kind of shine. That shine comes from the sanding underneath of it.
And there's no clear on it.
No clear.
No buffing yet. Now you guys think the sanding is over. It's just starting.
You got all your trim colors going. You gotta card it, and you gotta clear it. Then you gotta ink it. Then you gotta clear it again. Then you got 5 sandings. Then you got 3 or 4 buffings.
Yeah, it's a long ways from clear. For most, when they get into this stage, they just say, well, that's good. Go
That's
fly.
good enough. Well, it is. Right now, if you shot clear on, putting some numbers on, shot clear on that plane, it'd be a perfectly fine utilitarian paint job. It'd be a great utilitarian paint job. But to go the extra mile, and it is a mile, maybe a mile and a half.
To get on that front row is at least 100 more hours of sanding.
Yeah, you're going from 14 to 19 points. 20 is pretty
Not gonna
much
happen.
unachievable. I guess you could put a gallon of clear on it.
Now, if I wanted to be, so you guys understand, if I wanted to make a 20-point airplane, all I would have to do is put the trim colors on it, mix up a quart of urethane, and spray 1 coat on it, let it dry, sand it smooth, and then another coat, top that, and then polish it. And it would be 20 points, but it'd be a wall banger. It'd be hanging on the wall.
Yeah, it'd be 70 some ounces. A lot of them out there, 70 plus ounces. I know there's an airplane somewhere out west that's 80 something, maybe 90.
Yeah, 90. Raised Bearcat.
There's a rabies bearcat, there's a Strega out there that I know that's 80 or 80
The
something.
Canadian guy, Lou, has an 80-ounce Strega. Or is that it's one of them lumber wagons.
Yeah, they'll look pretty, but you pay the price, and you see it in your corners, in your hard corners. Your triangles, your squares, where they'll mush at the bottom. When you're flying the airplane, you'll notice that you've got a sort of speed management where you're having to whip them into the overheads or whip them into the 8s or just to maintain the airspeed.
Where you really see it is in the wind.
I'm not gonna lie, I've got a 74 ounce SV23, and it's got a PA65 in it on a pipe, and it's not hurting for power. But it flies like a 74-ounce airplane. You have to baby it in hard corners. You can't bang them really hard. And it mushes on the bottoms of the turns, and especially on the hourglass and the triangles, the bottom right-hand corner. You gotta turn it before you need to turn it. And of course that affects your score. So, of course my flying doesn't help my score much. It could be a lot better, but still, I go through the pattern and I keep airplanes for years anymore. I don't crash real often, but I'm a up-and-comer learner trying to be an expert, I guess. I'm maybe a good advanced flyer and not a very good expert flyer, but I'm an expert and I'm hoping to learn more, become better by flying against better, learning from the better guys.
I'm a low nationals expert for the simple fact I don't fly.
Yeah, you could be a hell of a lot better if you put in some serious practice time.
Maybe next year.
And that's how you used to be. So if you want some of that back, what you gonna do about
Nothing.
that?
Not a damn thing. Gonna hide it.
I think Jim would be, Jim, if you're on here, if you're watching, I think you'd be pretty proud. I gotta get my plane up here and do the same thing to it. Since I got all my little gray primer tip spots done on it.
Yeah, Jim would like this. I mean, not perfect, but.
This is a Geo Tucker.
Yeah. A jucker.
A Tucker. Mother Tucker. And really, that's all this is. It's a Geo XL.
Yeah. I've explained that several times, just a different dress. Should fly exactly the same as the other one, just look different.
Yeah. That little gun works pretty good. I got a good one in that one gun. For a $9 HPLP gun. out of let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Out of about 6 Harbor Freight touch-up guns, I got one that really outperforms all the rest of them. The rest of them are usable, but for some reason, this one just puts out a really fine, lot finer spray pattern than the other ones do for some reason. Probably in the needle.
I'm just glad this turned out as nice as it did. I worked pretty hard on getting this transition nice. That's kind of the,
Well, that's a focal point of that airplane, the way all that stuff transitions, the headrest into the fin and the fuselage and
I'm thinking,
getting it all to flow.
I'm thinking about a scallop, red scallop back here, flowing back, and then the black and white checkerboards. Then the big swoop with the Dr. Pepper logo and the 23 on the outside.
23 on the side of the fuselage,
Yeah, 23 goes here.
round L.
I might put my AMA number here because it only requires that I have my AMA number on the rudder.
The fin, rudder, top of the wing.
Right, well, I got 23 on the outside, see?
I think it ghosted in there somehow.
Yeah.
And if you guys can see that, you can see the picking up shine. That means it's smooth and flat.
And you can see through the wing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a see-through finish. It's not 100% opaque.
And that'll be plenty sitting on the tarmac with the sun on top. Let's see.
And you get the dark surface behind it.
Mark Lumen, good afternoon, guys. He must be a new subscriber, a new member. Mark, how long have you been a member? I need to get some more content out to the members only guys, but I just haven't had the time. You know, I will get it out. This is an extreme amount. Mark Lumen been in Nigeria a while, was in Nigeria for a bit.
Wow. Is there any flying going on in Nigeria?
Yeah, are there any airplanes, any control line guys in Nigeria? He's in Argentina for a week or so. Nope, no.
No flying, eh? Yeah.
How about Argentina? I know there's guys down there in Argentina. Look up Carolina Floristi. She's beautiful.
She does that's a radio control site, isn't it? She's on.
If you want to see what she looks like, look up Hobby Show TV. You won't be able to understand a word she's saying unless you speak Portuguese. But she's a perfect woman, beautiful, and don't understand a word she's saying. I think she's about 30 years old though, so that's probably why.
And when you're 60. It's coming along. So I'll be right there behind you.
Yeah, you better get on the stick. This will be the third airplane I finished since you did that one that's not done.
Well, I'm not in a race.
Yeah, well, gotta get them done. Yo, happy birthday. Mark just turned 60 yesterday. Well, we're all in that upper 60 category.
Getting to be mid 60. I got a birthday coming up in December.
Looking for some now. I have been building in Michigan. Been building a magician. Let's see. Well, no. I have been building a magician, looking for some now. Will do. So if that is the date. Oh. Hey, you're more than welcome. Chris Everson is 54, so he's a baby.
Yeah, 50 seem to be the youngsters of the crowd anymore. It's trying and shame we can't get kids involved into this.
They're not interested. It's too much work. What kid is going to spend this kind of time building an airplane to only be lost in a matter of a millisecond?
Yeah. That's true. Very true.
Mark Lyerman's new to control line, but he loves the building so far.
Well, the building's fine. Makes you a well-rounded airplane nut.
get out of there.
Box around.
I need to go down and get the ball driver unless you got one up here.
I got Allen wrenches up here, but I'm not boulder.
I gotta go down and get it because the bolts are down there anyway. The wheels. Get pretty dry.
Little tats to it. Is wrong.
Yeah, it's pretty close. I'll go down and get the ball driver and the bolts.
And this paint dries, and I know if anybody that's familiar with painting airplanes is going to find out that you can put these gear doors covers in there and these weight box covers in there and stuff like that, and every now and then they'll stick. If you take a little bit of baby powder and rub across any surfaces that are going to touch each other, wait until your paint dries, obviously. It will help alleviate some of that. You rub it on there and wipe it all off. You won't even know it's been on there.
You got any?
Yeah, probably do. I'm probably not out here.
Cornstarch, baby powder.
Zinc serum.
The type of paint is Randolph Dope. Yes, John Stand is PVC. I have a, in St. Louis, I have a Byron Barker metal paint stand.
This PVC stand is a piece of plywood about 2 by 4 on the floor. Then it has a toilet bowl flange bolted to it upside down. And then it's got I guess it'd be a 4-inch to 2-inch reducer. And then a vertical piece of 2-inch PVC pipe with an end cap on it. And then this piece that runs here for the motor mount, that's actually a piece of 1-inch aluminum rod that I had laying around. I made a little handle for it, screwed it into the end of it. And then half the rod is cut away on this end, so it sort of steps down half the thickness of the rod. And then when you look in here, there's a little square aluminum plate that's on the outside of that plate. It's got your 4 holes where your motor bolts to it. And then right in the center of it, it's got 2 holes that go into this aluminum rod that the plate bolts to the rod then through those. And pretty much that's it. And then this way you can spin it 360 degrees and it's as secure as your motor mounts are. Now, taken for granted, you don't want to sit on the tail end of your airplane when it's on one of these stands. But pretty secure.
Baby powder.
I don't have anything else here. Thought I did.
Okay. Yeah, I showed it, my mixing scheme in the first or second Saturday at John's. This setup that we have here, the reception for the internet is so bad in the garage, I couldn't get you up close and in the spray booth while I was spraying it. So you kind of looked at the wall and listened to us talk for an hour, but I mean, what are you gonna do? My biggest thing was to get the job done. Because I don't have a place to spray in that little apartment. I probably can get the trim colors on it in the apartment with the little airbrush compressor I have and my airbrush, and just get them taped up, step outside, spray them, and then bring it back in. I don't think they'd appreciate me spraying in the apartment. You know, I don't know it. See, even on the profile, I learned why to put on a take-off primer routine. It's for great learning. Well, the new system is no primer. So yes, I did used to use primer, but I'm trying to conserve on weight. So this airplane has no primer on it, just in a couple of spots. So I'll put it on and take it off primer. There should be more primer on the floor than that's on your airplane. We're trying to get away with.
Yeah, your airplane ought to be polka dot when you get all the primer sanded off of it.
No primer at all.
It'll look all motted. And I realize that the proper way to put primer on is to put it on and sand it until it's smooth and make it look like a piece of plastic, but you leave a lot on there. It's a fine line between sanding enough of it off and not having enough sanded off. You should almost be able to read the newspaper through it when you got enough of it sanded off. Leave it on there, you'll pay the price. I know the DC 540 that we had was some of the best primer that we thought that was out there until they quit making it. And then we come up with this other stuff, which is about 4 times more expensive and has probably 100 times more filler in it. Phenomenally heavy. We got a gallon of primer over here, another kind of primer that we're going to try on something, although we're trying not to use primer. Somewhere down the line we're going to try to use it, but it already appears like it's going to be really, really heavy because a gallon can weighs about 25 pounds.
That means
It'll probably work. It's just a matter that you got to get it off of there, just like that green automotive spot putty or gray automotive spot putty. You don't only put that on little teeny pinhole things and sand 99% of it off there.
the biggest thing in building these airplanes is getting them light. What do you suggest for drying time between coats until it's dry? Drying time.
We sprayed a coat on this airplane, went to lunch, came back, sprayed another coat on it. So about an hour in between coats. The when you're using dope, there really isn't any set time period on when you can recoat or not recoat, like unlike some of your enamels where if you go any more than 45 minutes, you got to wait 48 hours or 72 hours or it'll crinkle up on you. When you're using dope, you can actually put it on one right after another, but it's better if you're using really thin down dope like we're using to let it dry, and that's at least an hour, between coats. 4 or 5 hours would probably be better. But that's there's no really limitation. Hey, now you're going to want to let this thing dry for about a week before you go back masking it and all that stuff to put on trim colors and that kind of stuff, because you want your base to actually cast off pretty good. I don't know. Pulling masking tape off on trim colors. I put on trim colors, let it flash off enough to dry, sort of dry within an hour, and I start taking the tape off. Some people let it go longer than that, whatever. Some people, I don't like to do it when it's still wet, because what happens is, or can happen, doesn't happen all the time, is that the paint that you spray on for your trim colors is sort of thick where your tape lines are. Unless you're very, very careful not to paint directly on your tape lines and just let the overspray go in there. It'll get thick in there, it'll form a little fillet. The thickness of the tape, well, because it's a fillet, it's about 5 layers of tape thick, or 5 layers of paint thick, I should say, and it stays wet longer than the surface deep down into it. So when you pull the tape off of it, it can actually delaminate the underlying surfaces, because with dope, one layer eats into the layer prior to it. So it's a chemical bond. So each layer constantly eats into the layer below it as you're building it up. And in those little corners, you maintain all that thinner and all that stuff that's in there, and that's penetrating, the fumes are penetrating down in the underlying coats. So it's not unusual to leave trim color set overnight and take the tape off the next morning. That's not out of the realm.
It is for me.
Sparky lacks patience. He'll be untaping it and it'll still be wet. Don't ask me how I know, I've seen it.
Well, when I can paint 3 colors, one right after another, you gotta do it that way.
Well, you do it that way.
Yeah, it's not recommended for everybody to do.
That's just how he paints. So I do things a little different than he does. I don't necessarily sit there and yank my trim colors off, but I'll wait an hour or two, then come back, because I'm anxious to see what the outcome is. Get all that 7 hours worth of taping and papering off of it, and
2 minutes of painting.
see what your paint did, so you can go back and spend 7 more hours taping off the next color.
Still a little fresh.
Yeah, you might need a fingerprint on it if you're not careful.
I probably could get it off there if you took it off and I held it. Yeah, this is dry like this. But it's kind of wet up there around the cockpit.
I put a little bit of extra paint in there.
Sure feels like. Here, grab one of the landing gear. I got it. Maybe. Yeah. Beautiful.
Looks hardy.
Looks white. Very white. In all the whiteness.
I like it that way.
Yeah. It's gonna be a Dr. Pepper can.
Oh, is it?
Yep.
Yep, gonna look just like a Dr. Pepper can. A diet Dr. Pepper can.
Yeah. Except it ain't gonna say diet.
There's the paint job.
Yeah.
Part of it anyway. And he just took that off the paint stand, and this probably was painted, what, half an hour ago?
Yeah,
Longer than that, hasn't it?
something like that.
Wasn't much more, it was.
You'll be fine.
As you know, it's gonna have a 23 on there. Dr. Pepper's 23 different ingredients.
Yeah. Yeah, even that spot that I sanded there turned out okay. Remember that spot that I showed you?
Mm-hmm.
Disappeared.
How'd it turn out that well if it's raining out there and crummy?
Lots of retarder.
Professional painters. No retarder. Keeps it from blushing. There's not a lick of blush on that airplane. It's raining outside. Not a lick of blush.
There's plenty of retarder in it though. 4 ounce, I don't know what percentage that is. I would say at least 4 ounces, wouldn't you, of retarder I put in?
I don't know if it was 4 ounces or not. That's a lot. You're not supposed to exceed 10%. I think we said this before, but 10% retarder for overall amount of paint. And really, you're playing with fire if you go with any more than that, especially over canopies. We said it before, I'll say it once, I'll say it 100 times. When you use retarder, slows the paint cure time down. But when it slows that paint cure time down, all them solvents and everything have more time to penetrate, and they'll penetrate right down to the bare wood, and they'll loosen your fabric up, your covering, your tissue paper, whatever you put on it. They'll loosen that stuff up to where it'll delaminate, and it'll melt canopies, literally turn them into a lot of uselessness. And also when you use retarder, you'll notice that it'll make the paint sort of rubbery. And it could be a little unnerving at first. When you first try to, I guess, sand on a airplane that's had retarder put in the paint, because it takes a little bit to break through the outer surface, but normally once you get broke through the outer surface, it starts sanding about like normal.
There it is. I'm happy. Let's
Only
see.
good.
See, what do you suggest for dry? Okay. Limited with supplies while in Nigeria, so elected you ultra coat for the wings. I can't say I have done that. Now, new flyer and figured well, maybe the first couple of airplanes could have a short lifespan. Yeah,
Is he painting the fuselage or ultra coating the fuselage?
I don't know, I didn't say. Assume clear dope for the finish, yes. Clear dope will go over the top of the trim and the ink lines.
If you're using ultra coat on your airplane, you're using dope on your fuselage and
Or
maybe your tail surfaces, you want to cover the wing first. Tape your ultra coat off, put your wing fillets in, and then tape the fillets after you've sanded the fillets and all that stuff down real good. Retape them off again before you paint, just a little bit out from the fillets, and then paint your fuselage and the fillets and everything all at one time. Don't put your fillets in and then cover your wing.
yeah, just looking at this, it came out real nice. I mean, it's shiny. You know, and
All that sanding. That airplane is shiny like that because all the sanding that was done prior to that white going on it. Told you guys this before, this airplane was finished with no primer. I mean, it's got a couple little spots on the primer, which just some bad spots showed through and we couldn't get it with paint. So you put just a touch of primer on it, probably got less than an ounce of primer, I'll bet. It
yeah,
Plant looks good.
huh?
It looks good.
We'll be on the front row this year at the Nats. And John can attest to this. I can take an airplane that looks totally right now and shoot 3 coats of clear on it and make it 17, 18 points. So from here, it ought to be 20 or 19 anyway. But when you do it the way that I just was talking about, where you take a ratty airplane and turn it into something, it takes a lot of work. Man, it's a lot of work. A lot of sanding, elbow grease to get that clear to lay down. And you end up, what happens there, you end up polishing through the clear.
Oh yeah.
Mark Lauerman says, good tip.
And especially if you do like Sparky does, because Sparky's got a weight in his head. He doesn't want his airplane to go over that weight, so when it comes time for the clear coats, it may only get 1 coat of clear on it. It'll get a coat of clear, but it may only get 1, and that's dope, not urethane. And then it'll get buffed out. So your dope, your color dopes are the same as clear. I mean, clear is nothing more than your base for your colors. So your colors will buff out just as shiny as your clear will. The thing it won't have is depth. Your clear adds depth to the finish.
That flap, that outboard flap's gonna need to be sanded and re-shot.
That's where you dropped it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you stand, those spots just jump out on you. But that's not a big deal.
They always land on the top side if you drop something.
I think, oh shit.
Piece of butter bread, you drop it, always lands better side down, doesn't it?
Because it's the heaviest side. This cow could use another coat too. It's kind of dark gray. But
Well, you got enough paint, you can airbrush that on there.
yeah,
It's got little spots on the front and back that need to be touched up, and your gear door covers and weight box cover needs a little touch up.
I will probably mix up before I leave a little bit more. Yeah. Yep, you can still see through the.
Not bad for no paint and no primer, and my airplane's in the same stage as this, well, minus these top coats that he's put on this airplane. So when it comes off the paint stand the next time, it'll look just like this one right here.
Let's see here.
When you think you're done sanding, you better sand some more.
How many points would be perfect?
20.
Well, a perfect airplane is 20 points. There's no such thing. So I shoot for 18 or 19. If you end up with 17, you're still there.
If you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced flyer,
Don't worry about
don't worry about it, because it ain't gonna affect you. It only affects the top, probably even 10 in expert, or top 20 in expert, where a point here or something is the difference between first and 10th place.
If you're flying at the national level, try to get as many points as you can without sacrificing the weight. Because as I was cut out of top 20 one year by Phil Granderson by a third of a point.
Yep.
Third of a point.
If he just finished the bottom side of that airplane as good as he finished the top, he'd had that third point.
Yeah, I would.
Some guys will do that. You'll notice that they won't spend as much time on the bottom because you never see it really.
Right.
They'll put the markings on there and stuff, but they'll lax and lay off a little bit when it comes to really doing the fine finish and just do all that on the top part.
I got a S6B Supermarine at home in St. Louis that weighed 56 ounces with a 66-inch wingspan. So it was a geobolt wing and a big old fuselage. You guys probably, did you see it?
Yeah.
It's blue. It looks just like a Supermarine. And from the top, it's very nice. And Jim gave me 16 or, I don't know, it was a point or two off and that's how Jim and I met. Because I go, what the hell's the problem here? And he goes, well, look at the bottom. What about it? You got to finish it as good as the top.
Yeah.
And that's how I got that airplane so light. There wasn't much paint on the bottom.
They say they judge them from 10 feet, but no, they pick them up and they look at them a foot away, and
A foot away, shit. They got their magnifying glasses out.
you're judging the final 4 or 5 airplanes for front row. They're really picking them apart. They're looking for every little fillet area, every little hinge area, every little hanger rash dent that you got practicing with the airplane prior to taking it to appearance judging.
Give it about another 20 minutes and I'll load it up. Should be good enough to travel. Now this is the bare canvas, and this is the time when it really gets fun.
Did you take my plate out there?
Yes. This is the time when it really gets fun. You have a bare canvas, so you can sit and dream about what am I going to do to make this thing look good. And what I have in my head already is 3 rows of black and white checks on the rudder. It's going to have a red scallop here, 23 off a Dr. Pepper can. It'll have 23 on the outboard wing, the Dr. Pepper logo here. It'll also have my AMA number on the rudder instead of the wings. Gotta have scallops. That's my trademark. It's gotta have scallops on the nose. I might do this in black, a black frame. And I might do some checkerboards this way. It's gonna have about 6 colors on it. And all these colors that I'm gonna add won't add any weight, because first off, it's all airbrushed on, and it's so minimal. I mean, it wouldn't be an ounce of paint,
No.
fluid ounce of paint. Then, of course, it gets inked with all the panel lines. I'm thinking about the exhaust stacks for the, 24 cylinders or whatever,
Yeah.
going back here, and then the smoke going back. But the smoke is the last thing that gets done, because it has to go over the top of everything else, the 23 and the other decals, so on and so forth. But I'd like to have this airplane come out with as much detail as I did with my Thunderbolt. My Thunderbolt sat on the front row 3 years in a row. Nice airplane. Flew pretty good too. I really like that airplane.
Yep, all that work for a point or two. And like I said, if you're flying beginner, intermediate, or advanced, you want utilitarian. You want a light, good flying airplane. Keep it basic. You know, you want a good looking airplane, obviously, but you're learning this stuff as you go along, how to do a light finish, and you're practicing on how to use your spray guns and all that stuff. So you're not expecting anything, and appearance points don't mean anything. In fact, a lot of local contests and stuff that you fly in on a regular basis, with the exception of the Nats, don't even have appearance points anymore. They might have a concourse, which is the best looking airplane at the contest, but no so-called appearance points that affect your score. I think the Nats anymore is about the only one that does that. I don't know if I heard something correctly or not, but I heard the FAI might go to appearance points score.
Here we go. Let's see. I only have about 4 full flights as of now. Have a great mentor in Dave Tribble.
Okay.
He got me going. And yes, one of those was, let's say, heavy impact.
Uh-huh.
Learning to bench trim, CG as much. Been a pilot for 40 years. This stuff is fun. Yes, it is. I know that a lot of guys, they won't admit it to watching these videos, but they're watching and following along, and how I can tell they're following along is their airplanes are continually improving. You know, you can see those.
There are no secrets.
Yeah. You can see those tips that I put out there come up in these airplanes. Oh no, I knew that all along. Well, then why did you do it all along?
Well, you're constantly learning. It's an evolving process. I know from the first time I picked up a spray gun until now, you know, which you're talking 20 or 30, 40 airplanes in between there, that and my technique and everything is, you know, improved. You learn what you can, what you can't do, what you can skimp on, what you can't skimp on.
I wouldn't say this airplane picked up 2 ounces.
Yeah, you still got gas and off to do and all that stuff. So. an ounce a coat.
I'm gonna go down and get the
If
scale.
if it's thinned 50-50, about an ounce a coat of paint on a full size stunt plane, not a 35 size stunt plane. This finish, we're serious. This finish will be a 6-ounce finish when it's done, and that's from bare wood out. And trust me, you are not using any paint. This white that went on here today, there's 2 coats on there that was thinned at least 60%, and then retarder added to that after it was thinned 60%. So it's probably thinned 65%, 67%. So it's basically thinner that got sprayed on this airplane with just as a carrier for the white. And so really, you know, there isn't any paint. He had a half a quart jar of unthinned white. It wasn't quite a half a mason jar. And he filled the mason jar up 95% of the way and then added retarder and shook that up. And that's what and he still got an inch of that paint left, a good inch in the bottom of that mason jar that didn't get put on the airplane. Just because you got it, you don't need to put it on the airplane. Just because you get it. When you're painting these airplanes, another way you can do things, if you plan your paint job out ahead of time, and you don't have to put as much paint in certain areas because the large areas that may have some other color on them, leave the paint off. Figure out where that line is going to be and just overspray that line by a little bit and leave it unpainted underneath of it if you're going to put another coat.
I can't remember whether I had the wheels on it or not when I weighed it.
I think you had everything in it but the engine. You did it, let's see, you did it at home
Yeah.
the other day.
£1 15 ounces. So that's 32. What is that? 1.15 pounds. Let's do it in grams. Easier to figure that way.
Should be able to set it on that scale where it'll balance itself. You don't have to hold it. Put it on those that radius dairy line.
It's 1151 grams. That's pretty heavy. But I can't remember.
40.62 ounces, 628.
I don't think I had the wheels on it. Plus I deducted the tip weight, which is half an ounce. 40.62, so we're
Plus the motor.
is 16. I weighed all that hardware together. It was
16.
16, 17, was 18.2.
$58.62. Clear is going to be
2 ounces.
2 ounces. 60 ounces.
Gotta figure out how to get some weight off of it somehow.
Mystery pounds.
Gotta figure out how to get some weight off
I'll
of it.
tell you, at this stage of the ball game, we've discussed it numerous times amongst ourselves. There's these damn mystery ounces that come on these airplanes at the last minute, and I tell you what, he's weighed this airplane with everything on it, every piece of silicone tubing, fuel filter, spark plug, prop, spinner, you name it. It's been put on the airplane and weighed. As if it was finished, but somewhere along the lines in this, and that's being a paint. But you can add all this stuff up and you can figure it in your head, and this stab and elevator weighs 3 ounces, this flap weighs a half an ounce, that flap weighs a half an ounce. You go on and go on, go on. You get to this stage, and then all of a sudden there's 2 ounces that just out of nowhere. Where in the hell did that come from?
Well, we're gonna lose a little bit, probably lose a half an ounce gassing off.
Well, it's wet. It's
Got that line there.
yeah, I saw that
Have to hide that somehow.
panel line.
Yeah. Yep, that's what it'll be. I do my wing things and whatever.
And some of these guys, the guys that are getting 19 points, a lot of them they got molded airplanes. They're coming out of a mold, and the mold is done perfect. And you end up with a perfect finish on your airplane. Not to say that the paint that is put on can't be messed up, but the guys that are actually walking the mile to make the molds and do all that kind of stuff are pretty meticulous.
The mold maker should be the one with the appearance points.
They're a CNC machine that
Yeah.
cut that aluminum blank.
But so we're at 60. Is that with the clear or not with the clear?
That's what the clear. I mean, you could still come out sub 60, depending on how much gas is on. There's a lot of thinner on that airplane right now. You give it a good week. Be nice to drive around in a car with that thing.
In Arizona.
Yeah, 80 degrees outside and the sun baking it.
Yeah, it'll lose a little weight.
I realize there's a half a quart of thinner on that airplane.
Pretty much dry though. I mean, getting there.
Yeah, it's surface dry. You could still leave your fingerprints in it if you squeezed it hard.
Yeah. It needs another sanding though, before I clear it.
Yeah, you take some 600 or 800 and lightly,
Or some 2,000
yeah, just take the little
nibbles off.
Get little pebbles like on it. It's orange peel per se, but although you can't look at this airplane and see orange peel in it. But it's overspray dust and that kind of stuff that's on the surface that you just want to.
Yeah, I'll go over it with wet 2,000 before I lay it out.
That'll dull it all up. So anything you see shiny is going to be dull then.
That's all right.
Yeah, perfectly good. And all those sandings, all it does is make the final coat that much smoother and better. And
Yeah. Well, guys, I don't know what you thought of our today's BS session. Well, we're locked up again.
or you watched our wall of plastic, listen to the air compressor and the torpedo heater.
Well, the feed is frozen up. I'm going to end the show. I apologize for that, but that's how YouTube goes, and we'll see you on the next go round. Fair winds.